Hey, everybody, and welcome back to IndieQuest, the celebration of the indie and obscure, your home for all indie video game talk and goodness. I'm here with a couple co-hosts. My name's Josh, by the way, or Frantic, whatever you want to call me. I'm here with my other co-host, Seth, a.k.a. the Captain, Captain Drachma. How are you doing?
I am doing very well. Excited. We were talking a little bit before the episode. Excited to get back to the normal groove of things. We have been doing offshoots and different types of shows for quite a while, or having amazing guests on. It's going to be nice just to chat with you fellas about awesome indie video games. But Steve is also here, and I'm wondering, how is he doing today?
I'm wonderful. I'm doing quite well. I was worried because it did the thing that Minnesota does sometimes where it hovered right around 30 degrees and then started raining / snowing and alternating back and forth, and I had places to be, but no issues driving. Spent the whole weekend doing house chores, buddy. We painted my bedroom a nice purple.
Wow,
it's a lovely shade. I'll have to send you pictures. It's just good news all around. I tell you, I may have mentioned this on a previous episode too, but in preparation for the baby, which is coming in a month, yikes.
Right.
You'd think that there's like a lot of baby prep you're doing, which there's some, but in reality, it's just doing all the house projects that I put off for like 4 years. We've like fixed things in the house that have been, broken, but not so broken that they needed attention. We've painted several rooms. We've gotten rid of and rearranged a bunch of furniture, all sorts of things. So I'm feeling like hyper productive. Like I'm very accomplished these days.
Yeah, there is absolutely something about having a child that kind of, obviously yours was extremely planned, mine was extremely not, but it really shoves you either way into this like growing up thing that you just have to do, right? Like you can't put stuff off anymore because things are happening, right? So that's good to hear.
Yeah, and life goes on. You keep doing things after you have a kid, but something about right now, I'm like, yeah, but I can get everything in my life done, and then come April, have literally nothing ever happen again other than the kid.
Right. Ever, yeah.
No,
that's how houses work. Yep. Seems like
they don't deteriorate.
It seems like mine is always breaking. But anyway, Josh, how are you doing?
Oh, I'm doing pretty good. Just kind of living my life. Got triplets on the way. No, I'm just kidding.
Nice. Hey, congrats, man.
Yeah. No, I've been playing a game. We could talk about video games. That's what we're here for, right? Like I've been playing a mod for Celeste called Strawberry Jam. Have you guys seen anything about this?
Yes, I saw it in the Discord. Did you post it? Somebody posted it. I do remember seeing that.
Yeah, I just wanted to touch on it because I thought it was pretty cool. So a bunch of community members went and made 111 brand new Celeste levels, put it together in this giant pack, and like the creators of Celeste were like acknowledging it, like this is kind of like almost a spiritual successor to Celeste even. So it's kind of like there's not a lot of story. There's some story in it, but it's more like take like that last 2 stages of Celeste and like expand that, add new things to it too, and just kind of like build out like really challenging but fun, and that Celeste like trial and error type of splatformer goodness, and to just stretch it out to 111 brand new levels with over 8 hours of new music. It's like one of the most expansive mods for a game I've played in quite some time. And yeah, it's definitely, if you're into Celeste, I say check it out. It's very easy to download on PC. So yeah.
Did Lana Rain contribute the music, or is it other people kind of emulating Lena's style?
It's pretty much just her style, I would say, more than her doing it. But like, you get that feeling. Like, I love Celeste. I think, Steve, you're not as hot on it as I am, but you enjoyed the game, right?
Yeah, it's a good game. It's just one of those where, for a lot of people, it's like a top 10 game of all time, and for me, it was like a perfectly great game.
Right.
So I, even though I'm warm on it, I feel like I come across to people as cold because some people are so spicy hot on it.
Right, and I would say maybe I'm not spicy hot on it, but I love it. Like I thought it was a great game. I played it. It's one of those like for you, Super Meat Boy is you just go and play a couple stages when you're bored or whatever, just to kill time because you know it really well. That's me with Celeste. So having more of that is good. I would say that I've probably played like maybe 30 or 40 stages so far, and there's a couple of stages where I'm just like, this is just hard for no reason. It's kind of like almost not fun, it kind of starting to cross that line occasionally for me. But I would say if you're into Celeste, check it out because it's really an expansive and interesting thing that the community did there. So that's what I've been up to. Yeah.
On that difficulty note, before you bounce off that topic,
yeah,
is it designed to be hard? Like, is it Kaizo style? Is it if you've beaten Celeste and want more challenge, or is it does it follow a difficulty curve similar to Celeste?
So think of it, they have different tiers. So there's like a beginner and like a more advanced tier, and like each of the levels inside of that level there are like other like sub levels, so like the beginner area I was already starting to feel like, okay, yeah, this is pretty hard. So it's for people who are very advanced at Celeste, I would say. Like, and yeah, I got to the second area a little bit and had some fun with it, but occasionally you will hit a brick wall, I feel like, so far. So
yeah,
my goal is to try to get through the whole thing because I am having a good time learning the stages and learning the new mechanics. There's like mechanics where you like can phase through like the ground and stuff like that to chain together your movements and stuff like that. So they've added stuff to it, and it's just cool to hear some new music in that vibe, I would say, and just kind of like have something to. I actually managed to install it on my Steam Deck. It was kind of had to do a few workarounds because it's Linux and all that, but it's nice to have there. Play a couple stages here and there when you're, watching reality TV or whatever. So
awesome. That's a cool shout out.
Yeah, are you still strawberry hunting? Did they put strawberry?
Yeah, there's strawberry hunting in it, but
okay.
it's hard. It's really hard. Imagine like super hard stages, and then there's like a strawberry like way over in the side. You're like, how do I even get there? I would not even know how to get that strawberry. It's that type of challenge every once in a while, but it's like for somebody who beat the game and wants more. There you go.
Awesome.
Heck yeah. Very cool. And that's not your game pick. That's just a lovely shout out for a cool thing, right?
Yeah. A little shout out. Just something I'm whittling away on. Do we want to get into our game picks?
I would say so, yeah. I'll say this. Mine is pretty it'll go pretty quick. It's pretty slight.
Okay.
So I would say I'll either go last or I'll be a nice mid boy to kind of sandwich between the two of you. So whichever one of you wants to go first and kick us off, I'd say stage is all yours.
I'll go. Although
okay.
I think I went first last time, but I
It's
honestly,
been so long they don't remember.
Yeah,
I don't either.
Exactly. I've just been very excited to talk to you two about this game. I was actually excited to talk to you two about it before I even played it, because I think based off everything I read and some of the gameplay that I watched of it, I'm like, this is a game that my two co-hosts would enjoy. So I am interested to hear if you guys have actually heard of this game. It's called Post Mouse. Have you guys heard of Post Mouse?
Never. At least I don't think so. I mean, obviously I'm on the low looking up screenshots, but I don't think so.
Yeah, you see both of us reach for our various devices to look it up.
So interestingly enough, it is the first time that I've ever brought a game that was completely free. It's never cost anything. It actually released this year as I'm trying to check some boxes for this year's games again, right? It actually came out on January 30th of this year. And it was created by a team called the Critters Collective. And that is one of the most interesting parts of this game. It was actually created with the intention of, like, I believe, a school project. They are college kids in Denmark.
Ah.
Yeah. And I'm going to get into it. Obviously, I brought it to IndieQuest, right? You think of a lot of these kinds of games, and I think a game that Steve actually played recently was Alekhead, right? You played Alekhead.
Mm-hmm.
Alekhead was kind of created by one kid, right, in school, and that's how it started. And then he expounded upon the idea. That is sort of how Postmouse was, except for, to my understanding, it was created completely because they had a project to do for school. And I mean, like I said, it's here on the show, so it is definitely good enough to talk about. And I mean,
Awesome.
it is, I'll get into it a little bit, but very impressive game to be made by kids that are learning how to create video games. So
I couldn't pull examples off the top of my head, but I know it's true. I feel like we are hitting that point where, like, there's enough universities and colleges and things that have game design programs or game design elements in their programs where the, like, student project bar has gotten pretty high and the quality's getting pretty good. I think that the education is really starting to improve. It's always nice to hear a story like this, but it surprises me that it's becoming more common, right? Like it, or a game that started as a student project and then some of those folks spent a year or two polishing it up and then released it seems to be like a pretty good sort of entry point these days.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah. What it really reminds me of, just like looking at some gameplay, is just Moss. Like, it reminds me a lot of Moss, not just because it's a mouse, like the setting of it reminds me of Moss. So kind of like foresty, woodsy. It looks like there's some puzzle platformy elements to it. 3D platformer, this looks really good.
Yeah, I haven't played this game, but it also reminds me of a game that I've been meaning to play for a long time called Ghost of a Tale, which is also like a little mouse exploring kind of like Red Wall-y type environments. Assuming I'm looking at screenshots of the right game, which I haven't even given you the opportunity to describe.
You are both. I'm like, guys, you play as a cat. I don't know what you guys are looking at. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh, okay. I thought for a second you were being serious. I was like, wait,
I know.
am I on the wrong store page?
No. Yes, you do run around as a mouse. But before I get into that, it is only on Steam. But the nice thing is, if you have a computer that can run halfway nice fidelity graphics, then you should be able to run this game, I would think. It is a very pretty game. I believe it was made in Unreal Engine. Someone else might have to check me on that, but I believe that's how I believe I saw the little U in the credits after I finished it for Unreal Engine. So I think that's how they made it. But as Josh was saying, a little bit of an overview. It is a 3D adventure platformer with some puzzle elements, some problem solving. I have never played Moss, but yeah, now that you said that, I have seen screenshots and some video of Moss, and I suppose that probably is similar to what this is. But for me, this was a very unique adventure because I've never played a game like it, I guess. I mean, even I've never played Stray either, so even like really playing as a fairly realistic looking animal and running around a world was for me pretty unique and interesting, right? So I guess the biggest thing, that the driving force behind what Postmouse is, and if you guys got very far in your little searches there, you're basically a mouse that delivers the mail. So that you have like a little sack on your back, and you're running around, and you get a couple quests to go by your boss, who is a big toad, to go deliver mail in different directions. And I mean, that's like the whole driving force behind the game, right? So, which gets us right into some of the gameplay elements. You can run. There's a run button, which is nice, and a walk button, so that kind of smooths out the experience. There's the normal movement of just pushing the joystick in one direction isn't too bad, but after about 3 minutes, you're like, this is a little bit slow. So then the game immediately tells you like, oh, use R2, right? So then you're running everywhere. As you might imagine, there is certainly some jank. I mean, I don't know how long it took them to make this game, but there's some jank. There is no health bar So, but you can die, right? So generally the ways you're going to die is if you fall from too great of a height or if you fall into water. You cannot swim at all. And that's where some of the jank comes in. You fall into water and you kind of do that like writhing around thing like you're drowning. But even if one of your little mouse feet touch even the littlest bit of water, you make that same animation, right? So it's kind of like, okay. I mean, I totally get it. If they had a much larger budget, they could. Honestly, I wish these guys, and I'll get to it later, but I wish they would do that because I think they have a really good idea here and they could expound upon it. But yeah, there's certainly some jank layered in there. There's also a hint button, which I found really cool because in some of these, it's not open world, but you're a mouse and there really is a lot to explore in certain situations, which credit to them. Like there's a lot to do. Some of it is a little empty and open, which, you know, like I said, I'm sure the development span and everything in the budget, it wasn't quite there. But fortunately, you have a hint button, which is just whatever the right button is on the circle for a PlayStation controller, I'll say. I don't even know what it is for Xbox, but you can hit that, and is it? Yeah.
Yeah, it's B.
It's sitting over there.
Unless you're on Switch, then it's A. You know, just make it more confusing.
You can press that button and it makes the entire world go dark and then just lights up the next like objective, which is cool. Kind of keeps you going in the correct direction. Yep.
That's cool.
We mentioned a little bit of the problem solving, mostly like switch puzzles. There's like machinery that needs to be powered and you might have to flip a switch or step on a button. And then sometimes there are different things that can only be powered up by doing multiple of those switch type things. You kind of have to link them all together, right? So your typical puzzling in a 3D platformer.
How many times in this game does that mouse push a block?
0.
Oh,
I'm
the
surprised.
creativity of the kids these days.
But the mouse does pick up like dice-sized blocks and puts them on top of pressure plates. So basically the next thing after block pushing, which in my eyes, right? But
they got the companion dice, basically. Right?
Yes, exactly. It still works well within where it needs to be used. The funny thing is, this is a complete sidebar, and I would love to talk to the devs about why this was, but there is a portion of the game where you have to do that, where you pick up a block and put it on top of a pressure plate. And there just so happens to be like 10 dice laying around. You can pick up any of them. You only need, I won't say how many you need, but you don't need 10. So I'm wondering if it had something to do with like, well, if you lose one somehow, there are more. And they didn't bake that in. You know, there's no program that says automatically return it. They didn't want anybody to get locked in.
So they just they lowered the chances by giving you a ton of them. So, 1 or 2 fall through the environment, you're still okay.
just don't be too stupid and you should be all right. Yeah. Jump distances, sometimes in these games it can be tough to judge jumps, and I drowned my little mouse so many times because I could not tell how far I'd be able to jump, which is maybe a little bit of like the graphics are so realistic, which is cool, but it just makes it so it's like, is that rock in the middle of the river something that I can actually jump on, or is that going to kill me? And it's trial and error.
Now, you mentioned jank and you're talking about stuff like that in the environment. Is this the type of game where, say there's like a rock wall, I can start jumping against the wall and get my little mouse to stand on a tiny triangle of geometry I'm not supposed to and kind of shimmy my way into solutions I shouldn't?
Probably. I would imagine so.
I'm salivating. I already added it to my library.
I was trying to do those exact things, and I would get so far and be like, I'm pretty sure I could get to that thing
Yeah.
over there, but I'm like, I'll just keep going right with the game. But yeah,
Yep.
it would be interesting to try to break it because it just lends itself to being broken. And
Yeah.
the thing is, usually with a game of, especially this, the way this game looks, there's probably more of a QA team than they had. So, you can't really fault them because I'm sure they were all involved in creating it. And whenever you test the game you created, you're never going to find everything that might be wrong. But
even in major AAA games, you can't catch all that type of stuff. So certainly, that I think of stuff like that as a positive. I think if I can do stuff like that in your game, I'm happy because I get to be my little speedrunner brain gets to turn on, and I get to have all my little janky creative solutions. So I'm all for it.
Yep. And another little thing that will make Steve's ears perk. There is a little collecting. You can find little stamps. From what I could tell, there's no achievements tied to it, but it gives you a little bit of extra thing, and there is a stamp book. So you can find all the stamps, and it will say, like, if you've completed the book, right? So
I wonder, it's only on Steam and it's free. I wonder if Steam has some policy against achievements for free games to, like...
It could be.
I don't know if it's like to prevent people from making games that are just like, launch this for 100 free achievements or something like that.
Yeah, that could very well be. But at the end of the day, like, the collecting, to me, it really still, it reminds me of like a PS1 game. There was no achievements. There was no trophies.
Yeah.
And yet I still tried to find all the treasure in Spyro. So,
Of course, yeah. And in a game like this, like a 3D sort of like platformer adventure game, the collectibles just do a good job. Their presence alone makes you want to look around more and just explore the environments more. So they just serve as like a really effective carrot to get you to see as much of the game as you possibly can.
Right. Absolutely. All right. That will lead us into some more of the presentation of the game. To me, and you guys are looking at screenshots and watching some video, it almost looks like a very pretty PS3 game, which I mean that in the best way possible. Like, it really looks nice.
Yeah, I could see this like the style. Like, this is a launch title for the PS4. Like, that era, something like that. Like, very Knacky vibes. Knack, the greatest game of all time. So,
The story is extremely basic. You're a mouse. You deliver the mail. At first, this isn't spoilery because you find out immediately. And as you might be able to guess, you are a mouse, so you are somewhat scared of a lot of the things that you're going to go do. Usually, the pigeons are the ones who deliver the mail, and you work behind the desk. But you've always dreamed of going out and delivering the mail yourself, and you finally have your opportunity, right? So, very cliche in that way, but it's the driving force. And honestly, again, not knocking the game, but I don't think that the story was their main focus. They were trying to create a game first, and they kind of put the story in there and made it make sense, right? So
yeah.
Animations, like I said, are a bit janky. The drowning, the falling. Sometimes when you're walking, it's almost like you're hovering over things. It's like the feet aren't actually touching the ground. It is to be expected, I suppose, because of the development. If they had more time and more eyes on it, I'm sure they could have made it look amazing. And it already does look really good. I'm again not trying to knock it. It looks really good. It's just there's certain things you know that it was created by a team that had a very low budget and was not trying to make money off of it, right? So
yeah. Yep.
All right. The music is one of the most stunning parts of this game. I was so impressed. I went into it thinking that it would be, I don't know, and maybe it is. I don't think so, but like, you know how you have, like, on YouTube, you can get stock music, right? Or whatever.
Yeah.
I anticipated, or like license free or whatever. I anticipated that's what this type of game would use. But the music is gorgeous, beautiful. I don't know who did it. Maybe I'm assuming one of the students, right, made the music for it. But it is like beautiful orchestral arrangements. Just makes it such a nice atmosphere as you're going through it, because it's very airy and light, and just makes you feel like you're a mouse going on an adventure delivering. It's the perfect music for this game.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Yep.
Because you think of like a game design program in a college or in a university, right? Is they can teach a lot of things. They can teach all the components of it, but they can especially teach like here's some basic programming understanding. Here's how you use these engines and these tools. Here's how you do 3D modeling. To some degree, here's how you do like texture work. Like there's certainly artistry there, but there is some technical components they can teach. But like teaching someone how to be a composer for a game, like people do entire separate university programs to learn how to compose music. So for them to like pick that skill up in a blended program with a bunch of other disciplines is particularly impressive. I would suspect maybe someone just, kind of has a natural ability for that type of thing.
Yeah. It made me wonder if maybe there is a music department that, and they like work together, right? So
okay.
The development team understands how to get that music into the game, but maybe they actually use the music and they work together with somebody in a different department. I don't know.
I never thought of that. And maybe some universities like game design schools do this, but the idea of like choosing like a specialized track, like 3D modeling, rendering, animation, music, and there being like separate, 2 or 4 year programs for that track, and then those classes that exist simultaneously are all working collaboratively on one big project is actually very smart. It's like a really neat way to just like simulate a full studio.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
That's cool. That's awesome.
And teaches that, as you both know, we all have to work with people outside of our direct departments in every job that we ever are in, right? Like you have to work with somebody in something else and collaborate, right? That's a great skill because you don't know these people, but you have to somehow figure it out, right? So that's a guess. I don't know if that's true. Maybe somebody was just very musically inclined in their group, but it could be, right? So maybe someday we'll find out. Maybe somebody will reach out and listen. That'd be awesome. But anyway, I don't think I have anything else to cover about Postmouse. Do you guys have any other questions or thoughts before I get to my Questlog verdict?
Did you go ahead. Did you just come across this looking through like new releases on Steam, or how'd you come across it basically?
Yeah, actually, that's an awesome question, Josh, because I actually meant to mention that before. But yes, every week or so, I will just search new releases on Steam, see what's out there. And I saw Postmouse come across, clicked on it, and was like, this looks like a really fun game. Started looking at some of the reviews. People were really enjoying it. And I was like, cool, maybe I'll buy this. And then I scroll up to see how much it costs, and it's free. And I'm like, well, now I'm definitely getting this thing. Like that's awesome. So
it's funny because I went, obviously I pulled up the Steam page and I added it to my library, and I see one of my friends has it on their wish list, and I'm like, why'd you? What? Maybe they wishlisted it before it came out or something. But like, what? You just click the add to library button. You're good.
That's funny.
Just make that giant number of Steam games you have go up by one number. It's not a big deal.
Exactly.
So true. Did you mention? Maybe I missed it. How long does it take to play through?
So I was actually going to mention it in my verdict, but I will mention it now. A reason I think the both of you should give it a try, and anyone listening who might be inclined to play a game like this, it is an hour long, which
love it. I love a nice tight experience. The world needs more of those.
Yeah.
Yes. I honestly, and I will say, before I even talk about where I would put on their quest log, it feels good in an hour because you can tell that they got out there what they wanted to, right? They completed the circle, and that's what they wanted to do.
This is a complete thought, right? Yeah.
Right. Now, I will say, and if you guys are listening, make another game, because you guys have something for sure. It was very fun, and I could see this being a nice 5 to 7 hour 3D platformer, right? It's just, I'm assuming they didn't have the time, they're learning, all that, right? So, but
I hope if they make a sequel that they name it Postmaster General.
That would be awesome.
So perfect. Nice.
Seriously. If you're listening, that's
for free. That's the public domain, baby. Enjoy.
But I will say, as you probably both can guess, I am going to put it on the side quest because of all of the aforementioned things. I am completely fine with a little bit of jank, and I know my co-hosts, especially one of them, is very fine with some jank. But at certain parts, it just kind of feels a little unfinished in certain areas. They were pointing you in the direction you wanted to go, and kind of like Steve was alluding to, I'm assuming you can easily break it. It feels almost a little tech demo-y in some ways, but it is still a very fun, tight experience. The controls are much better than you would think they would be based off of the development cycle and everything like that, right? So, like I said, I will definitely play anything that these guys make from here on out. And I would love, like, the one thing that's, is a good thing, is like a seal of approval for games like this, is when it's a free game on Steam and 90% of the comments are like, what? Why is it free? I will give you money to play this.
Yeah. Like,
so
this is a good solid $5 game. Why didn't you? Yeah.
Yes,
gotcha.
exactly.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So
that's awesome. No, that totally makes sense. Side quest to me, it's sort of exactly what the side quest is there to do. It's definitely something that I will check out. It's funny. I was looking at the reviews here, and someone with 17 hours on record. Now, I know they probably just left it up and running, okay? Right. But still, 17 hours on record, their review says, my only complaint is that this game is really short. It's like, you played that for an Uncharted's length worth of time, buddy.
Exactly. Honestly, I don't ever come on here and say, there was maybe one time with Titan Souls where I was like, Steve, you should really play this game on a stream. But I did immediately think, this is a great, don't know what to do with the last hour Steve stream game.
I literally have like a mental list, and I'm like, yep, this is getting tucked right in. Like whenever I want a short stream or something. I would even be happy, since it's such a short game, you could do something fun like, play through it and then spend a couple hours just like trying to break parts of it and see how quick of a little speed run we can do of it or something like that. So
I mean, I will say I didn't get all the stamps. I just kind of beelined it for the most. I grabbed stamps when I saw them.
Yeah.
I didn't even come close. So that would take a little bit of time to find the stamps, I imagine. So, but
there you go.
Anyway.
Hey, the soundtrack's free too, just so you know.
Also
nice. Available and downloadable. There's also a book called Mr. Post Mouse that is for children and unrelated. So don't get your Google search twisted.
I didn't see that. That's awesome. That's awesome. So, okay.
Cool.
So
I
will pass the baton. I will just spring it, since I went first. I will spring it upon one of you. I will pass the baton to Josh.
Oh, okay. Let's go. All right. I'm bringing a new game too. Just came out recently. It is a beautiful black and white, painterly looking game where you play as a fox and a deer called Blanc. So I'm bringing this to the quest log today. And so this game is, let's just go back. Whenever they announce this on the Nintendo Direct, it always leaves an impression. Every time you see like a trailer for this game, you're like, it's beautiful. It has like this amazing art style. Like, what is this game? Oh, it's co-op. Oh, really cool. You have two characters and you have to work together to solve puzzles. And like the deer has a boosting ability. You boost the wolf up, and you kind of just work together to get through all these little fun puzzles to get your way back home. And it's a simple little game. There's not much to it. Very easy to play with your partner. And I think the reason I'm going to bring it today is it's perfect for that. It's a date night game. So if you're looking for a date night game, this is a date night game. You got 3 hours to spare, 2 to 3 hours to spare. You have a partner. My partner plays video games, but say you have a partner that doesn't really play video games. You want them to play a game with you. This is perfect for that because the game is very easy to play. It's literally you go point A to point B, get to another puzzle. Okay, how do we solve this puzzle? You figure it out, and then you go to the next puzzle. There's beautiful music in the background the entire time. Very simple, just light orchestration throughout the entire game. It's very cozy. Yeah, I can go on about all the positives for this game. Have you guys played it yet?
I haven't played it yet. It looked very striking, like you said, when I've seen previews for it. And it's shown up in a couple different events. Like, it's definitely shown up in the Nintendo Direct, like you said. I think probably some other ones, too. So I do intend to get around to it at some point, but there's just a lot of video games out there, man. There's so many.
There is.
I will say that if for nothing else than the graphics, it deserves to be on the quest log. I don't know how the game plays, but this game looks so
very
amazing.
Striking.
Yes.
It's got that Cuphead effect where when it's in a sizzle reel with other games,
Yeah.
you stop and you go, whoa, what was that one? I want to see some more of that one.
Yeah.
Bring that one back.
Yep.
So with that amazing art style does come some caveats to the game and gameplay. So the way that our art style is, it's very I would say think Borderlands without color, but more beautiful somehow. Because there's scribbly nature to the way it looks. I can't really describe it. Just go look up a screenshot, I guess. That's the best way to describe it. But it looks almost hand-drawn in a 3D space. And occasionally, on some puzzles, it gets in the way a little bit, I'll say. So there's a little puzzle near the beginning where you see a duck with little ducklings, and you got to get the ducklings across this pond or cross this area with wind. And the way to get them across is you block the wind with the characters together, co-op style. And it's really hard to see exactly where the hitbox is for the wind because of the way the art style is. So this happens occasionally in the game. So there is some friction there when you're playing because you'll be like, okay, I know what I need to do right now to get to the other side with these ducklings. But occasionally, you're just off by a pixel. But you didn't realize that because to you, it looks okay because of the art style. So that's the negative to the art style, but it's such a striking presentation that even the little faults that I can have with this game when it comes to the gameplay, sometimes having that friction really just doesn't even matter to me because it was just a nice, cozy couple hours just chilling, playing this game where you're kind of working together and trying to figure out I don't think there's any block puzzles in this game, but similar to that, just a very simple, okay, you got to get from point A to point B. There's a scene area where there's two goats. There's a black and a white goat that will follow your character, and then you have to jump across and guide the goat across a gate to open up another gate. Then they help you out push a freaking container over and things like that. So it's just very simple puzzles that you can pretty much piece together just by looking at the screen for a couple seconds. You're like, okay, we got to get up there. How are we going to do that? All right, let's do it. And then you kind of team up to do it. The fox or the wolf, it's not a fox, it's a wolf. The little wolf can kind of fit into smaller areas that the deer can't fit into. So that's the special power, quote unquote, that character will have. And then as the deer, you can kind of push bigger objects or you can boost up the wolf to places they can't get to. So you're kind of working together, trying to get the wolf up there to get to a small spot to push something over so that the deer can get up to the next area. And honestly, to me, it's just going to be a nice, memorable gameplay experience to just sit down and we did it on Valentine's Day. This game released on Valentine's Day. I thought it was a perfect little thing to kind of cap our night off during Valentine's Day. So
is it's exclusively co-op, right? Can you play this single player and control both of the two or no?
Yeah, that's definitely what I was going to get around to that. There is a brothers Tale of Two Son control scheme for this if you want to play it that way. So yeah, you can play with one analog stick, one character, and the left and right trigger for the the action buttons, and then the same thing for the right side. So you can play it like that. I haven't tried it myself. I don't know how good that would play. I mean, it might be fine. It probably is fine if you want to play it on your own. But I really think having somebody in the room with you, or even like through a Discord call, playing with your friend, I think is the best way to play this game.
I mean, I definitely would play it co-op. I was just wondering if, folks were gifted it, or if they were just, so enamored with the art style or something that they did want to check it out. If that made sense.
Yeah,
I also
definitely.
separately went and looked while we were talking. I was like, Brother's a Tale of Two Sons. And I'm like, it's by Starbreeze. It's probably not something I'd bring here, but I will say,
is that an
play
indie
Brothers
game?
A Tale of Two Sons.
I always thought that was an indie game. I guess not, but it's
I
on
don't
the.
wanna
It's
say
on
that.
the.
I don't want to say
edge.
anything from the Drachma. Drachma thinks it's an indie game. That's for dang sure.
It's the It Takes Two scenario, right? Like it's made by a smaller studio, but it's published by, or is that a bigger studio, Starbreeze? What else do they make? Other things? I don't know. But anyway,
Interesting.
My question is,
Sure.
now that with any amazing art style should come some amazing music. And I have actually, other than like the trailers, I don't think I've listened to any of the music. So how does this game sound?
yeah, I touched on it a little bit, but it's kind of like, think the Breath of the Wild effect, where there is some silence, and then they choose like the piano to come in at specific moments and things like that. And there are little cutscenes that do have really like, so there's like, there's a lot of the whole story is like, I mean, quote unquote story. There's not much story in the game, but basically you're trying to each get to your separate families, your herds, quote unquote, and you will have moments where you are trying to help somebody out, and there's like be like a little like 45-second cutscene of like the deer helping the wolf up because it fell or something like that, and there'll be like this like orchestration, sweeping music while they do it, things like that, and it does sound really good. I don't think there's like a theme I could pull out, or I don't know if I would want to listen to it in the background, but in the setting of the game, paired with the art style, it really does match, and it adds to it quite a bit.
Is there other stuff like going on as you explore, like off the beaten path to collect or seek out and find, or is it just literally a straight shot A to B?
It's just straight shot A to B. I can't think of any collectibles, anything like that. It's just a simple little puzzle platformer. You just get from one puzzle to the next puzzle to the next puzzle until the story's over. And hey, that's okay sometimes. And
Yeah.
honestly, I just think like there are things like I can see somebody who is maybe a little more critical on games being like, it was an okay experience. But to me, like this one is pretty much a perfect side quest game for that reason, and that's where I'm going to put it, because it's like it's going to hit people differently, I think, because of the little moments, like I said, with the friction in the gameplay. To me, I'm okay with some jank when I have such a beautiful game and such a good experience to have with my partner. It was just such a nice cozy night, and it's going to be something I remember. I probably will go back and play this game again another year or two down the line on a Valentine's Day again and have that same date night just because I enjoyed it so much. So I think that it's a perfect side quest game because it's not a perfect game. No game ever is, but it's such a nice little 2-hour, 3-hour experience. It's kind of like watching like a nice little movie, and with some puzzles, So,
Nice.
Yeah, honestly, some of the stuff you've been describing, I brought a game a few months ago, probably now, called Voyage, that is very similar in vibe to that. It's a completely different looking game, but very short, bite-sized, play with a partner, and just sit down, chill type of game. And it is fun. I mean, it doesn't always have to be groundbreaking to have a good night, right? So,
yeah.
I feel like too, we're still like massively underserved on co-op game, like designed for co-op games.
Yep.
So anytime one of those comes around, I'm always happy to see that for sure. I do. Okay. Normally we don't do anything like this, but I do have a question. If folks are interested in Blanc, this is probably a spoiler, will be as vague as possible, but I have to ask this for my own mental well-being. So you can skip ahead a minute. Buddy, I've seen Fox and the Hound. And when I see these trailers, my mind I just worry they're going to do me dirty. You don't have to say any of the details, but am I going to be turning on the waterworks by the end of Blanc?
Let's just say that this game wouldn't be on that website, doesthedogdie.com.
Okay, thank God.
There you go.
All right.
That's probably it's a spoil for the game. I don't care, but yeah.
Some people, I mean, like that website exists for a reason, right? Some people need to know that before even going in to checking out a game like this.
Yeah. So,
anyways,
I will say there's nothing that's going to make you weep openly in this game. So,
all right, nice, good pick. I guess that just leaves me, huh?
Yeah, it does. What you got?
All right. We have an unofficial theme here, boys. All right. Indie Squad Rise Up. We without even trying did a short game long jacket episode. Every single game we brought is like a 2-hour or less experience. That's exciting. Now, okay, the game I brought is not a sequel, but it is sort of the spiritual successor / follow up to something that is already on the quest log. And I was trying to think, we have had a couple of those that we've done, but it's pretty uncommon. So I feel like, a little bit of a cause for celebration, right? I'm bringing What the Bat. Now, are either of you aware of this game in any capacity?
Yes.
I'm not, so I'm very interested.
All right. So I recently the Sony PlayStation VR 2 released, and I was excited, and I went ahead and did the dang thing. And so What the Bat was one of the launch games on VR 2. Now, it didn't release for the first time on the VR 2, but it's the first time I had the chance to play it. The game actually released, I can give you the rundown of the details. It released November 17th, 2022. It released on all the major platforms for VR, so it's on the MetaQuest 2. Is it just the MetaQuest store? Wherever you buy MetaQuest games, it's on that. It's on, obviously, PSN for VR2, and it's on Steam because it's on the Index. But it is a VR exclusive game. You have to play it. And, with the name What the Bat, it is the follow-up to What the Golf, or in the same style as What the Golf, also by Triband Studios that did that. So, it's a great elevator pitch game, especially when you imagine it in VR. The idea for the game is that you play as a character whose hands are baseball bats. So everything you do and everything you interact with in the world is under the guise of these baseball bats. And the structure of the game is very similar to What the Golf, in that it's sort of like little mini challenges or mini scenarios where you have to just accomplish one small goal. In almost every one of the challenges, the goal is to knock over in VR a trophy. And so you knock over the trophy, you get a little confetti pops out, and then the screen fades and it pops back up and you're doing the next one here.
Nice.
And just like What the Golf, they immediately start subverting your expectations, doing silly, goofy things, playing with what you're expecting to happen in the scene, all sorts of stuff. So, right away, the idea, in the very first challenge on the very first level, you will, you press a little button and you'll hit a baseball into a trophy that's on the pitcher's mound, and then boom, it's good. And then then it'll fade and it'll load up another rune. It'll look like the same challenge, but you go to hit the baseball, and instead the bat will fly off of your hand and hit the trophy instead. Like a little visual gag you weren't expecting. And then the third time it'll load up the same thing again. You hit the baseball, and last second the trophy will move out of the way in a way that you weren't expecting. So it just likes to goof around. The whole point of the game is to basically make you laugh. It's designed to be a comedy game and a little bit of a puzzle solving solution type game. It's a VR experience. So what I like about that structure is if you're someone who is sensitive to VR, it's good because you're entirely stationary. You don't have to walk around. Your feet are always firmly planted. You're just looking around the environment and using the spatial distancing in VR to actually accomplish the various tasks.
Maybe you're about to get into it, but I wonder I always wonder about these games and how well it actually controls. Does it control pretty well?
Yeah, so it'll depend on the various VR headsets in terms of
Okay.
tracking quality
Yep.
and things. Now, I can speak to PlayStation VR 2's control, and it is very good. The game definitely has a little bit of meeting you in the middle in terms of physics, because it's I don't know if you've ever, it's a weird thing, but if you ever try to do the motion of swinging a baseball bat when you're not holding a baseball bat, it feels awkward, and your elbows kind of pop in a way that they don't when you actually have weight to swing around.
There's no weight. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. I do have one question. I'm sorry. Is there a moment where you have a baseball bat and you swing it and it turns into a worm? It just gets floppy? I just gotta know. I don't know why. It just popped into my head.
No, but there is a moment where you get a fish that bites onto the end of your baseball bat that is all wiggly and floppy. So
Okay, that works. That's even funnier. So they already out-funnied me. Okay, we're good.
Yeah. And while the knocking over the trophy is sort of the default objective, there are other objectives that you'll pick up from context all over the place. And for example, there'll be a level where you will be fishing, and so your baseball bat will have a fishing rod attached to it, and you'll cast the line out and catch a fish. Boom, done. And then the next level will be you cast your line off to the side where there's a stick of dynamite, and then you cast that dynamite into the lake and blow up all the fish. And then the level after that is literally there's a storm cloud up ahead, and you stick one bat up into the storm cloud and one bat down to the water to let the electrical current run through you and zap all the fish in the pond. So they just do all sorts of weird stuff like that. And what's fun is they can play with perspective because it's VR. And so there'll be a level where it's you have to do something with a vending machine. You have to press a button on a vending machine to kind of shimmy a trophy down from the vending machine. And then there'll be another level where it's the exact same thing, but there's no button, and you're what the heck's going on? And it turns out that the button is hidden around the corner on the right side of the vending machine that you can't see from where you're standing unless you take a step and look around. So it's very I would liken it to anyone that is familiar with VR to something like a job simulator, where it's very immediately accessible, goofy, and a really good introduction to learning to play around in a virtual space. So
if you have a family member who is not accustomed to VR, just toss the headset on that person for this game. I could imagine my dad enjoying something like this, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, even if he doesn't solve many of the puzzles, just the novelty of standing and looking around and moving your hands that are baseball bats and clonking them together and stuff like that.
I feel like it has a little bit of a Wii Sports vibe, right?
Yeah.
With the Wiimotes in your hands and stuff. Yeah.
Yep. Very, very similar energy.
Nice.
Go ahead.
No, I was going to ask, so the What the Golf from Tri-Band, they did a lot of video game references in What the Golf. Does this have those video game references, or do they just do the goofy VR perspective ones?
There are some. It's not quite as intense as What the Golf. What the Golf,
there's Mario stages.
I love What the Golf.
Yeah.
Folks will remember What the Golf was a main quest, but they explored all sorts of stuff. I mean, obviously they had my heart because they did plays on Super Meat Boy, but they did all sorts of game references. There are a few in here. I don't want to give them all away. I'll say, for example, Portal makes an appearance, and there's some other stuff that is video game adjacent, including some playful callbacks to What the Golf.
Oh, cool.
So they definitely bring that same spirit. I will say, overall, there is less to this game than there was in What the Golf. Kind of in general, it seems maybe a shorter experience by design. They didn't put quite as much into it. It doesn't take nearly as long to play through. Maybe because it's a VR game and they just didn't anticipate people to spend as much time with it as something like What the Golf, which was designed for tablets and phones and stuff that everyone can play at any time. But it's I'd say it's like a 3-hour experience. So it's not like, a lot of VR games can be very like demo-y and only be like 15 minutes. It's a full game. There's like 100 levels or so for you to go through. If you've ever seen What the Gulf and you can like imagine what that art style would look like in VR, it is exactly that. It's very like flat, cell shaded, like bright, vivid colors, very goofy. A lot of the shapes are like, simple rounded shapes. It's obviously low poly by design, both for the art aesthetic and to make sure it runs smoothly in VR. So that's good. I will say there is like a fun visual gag where it's not really ever explained why, but in every level, somewhere in the level, there's this like elephant character, and sometimes you're like directly interacting with them. Sometimes they're just like up on the corner of a building staring down at you. Sometimes you're like, where's that elephant character? And then you look behind you and they're like directly right behind you. You're like, oh. The like, whatever you want to call a story in this game, the story seems to be following you like throughout your entire life. So like some of the earliest levels are you when you're very young, like a young kid and stuff like that, even a baby at the very beginning. And it almost gives the vibe like maybe that elephant character is your parent, but you also play as like a human-looking character, so I have no idea.
Yeah, honestly, it just sounds like they just had a funny idea for a visual gag in each level. It's like, this random elephant, I'll just throw him in there, like give them something to look around and experience in VR, yeah. So that's still funny, though. I actually just really appreciate their sense of humor, so when I seen like the little clips, like little snippets of this game, I'm like instantly, man, I need to play that as soon as I possibly can. So, yeah.
No. I again, it like by necessity almost has to be compared to What the Golf because they share such a similar DNA. But like the music, first off, is very, very light. Like there is some music that plays in the background, but like by design, it's kind of elevator music-y. It's designed to be like light, kind of chipper, but not really something that you're gonna commit to memory or like listen to after the fact. Yeah. They do have the What the Bat equivalent of the What the Golf song where they're like, what the bat. And they play that during some of the like basically the last stage of every area. So you'll play like one area will be kind of themed around a subject. So like I said, when you're a teenager or when you like get your first job, or there's one that's like all farm themed, there's one that's like desert island themed. And at the end of each one of those levels, you're given an opportunity to do a selfie, usually while also like having some like way to decorate or interact with your environment to create like a personalized selfie. So in one instance, there was like some art-themed puzzles, and so you can dip your bat into some paint and draw a picture on a wall, and then you can take a selfie. Oh, nice. So you have to do that to finish every round, and during that is when they play that goofy song. Yeah, I think it is a very good introduction to VR, like I said, and it is one that it's hard to recommend because like you are sort of by default recommending a very niche $500+ device to play. Yeah. But if you have one of those devices, I would certainly recommend that folks check it out. So, yeah. Any other questions on What the Golf before we round her down?
I think
I said What the Golf. I meant What the Bet.
Yeah, I know what you meant. No, I think you pretty much you sold me more on this because like if and when I get a PSVR 2, this will be like one of the first games I play. So I'm glad that you enjoyed it, and it was more. I actually expected this to be like a 25 to 30 minute thing, like a little just tech demo-y thing. So hearing that it's like a couple hours to 3 hours, something like that, actually makes me more interested when I get my VR and can play it. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so in terms of the quest log. Again, just like in the description, you have to compare it to What the Golf. And if I'm putting the two side by side, even if it wasn't for the VR component, I would recommend What the Golf in more instances. I would say What the Golf is more fully featured. It's a little bit more creative. What the Bat has a little bit more has a few more repetitive levels. Like they reuse the same idea more times than what the Golf did, to the point where one or two of them actually start to get maybe even a little bit stale. It almost feels like What the Bat was the first game and What the Golf was the sequel, oddly enough. So I think relative to that, I would put it on the side quest. But it's like if you have a VR, it's probably a main quest for the VR user, because we don't really get to talk about a lot of VR games. But I would say it averages out, and on the whole, it belongs on the side quest as a very fun, kind of novel, if lightly repetitive experience.
Awesome. This was a side quest filled episode.
So, yeah, it's a short game, long side quest.
Short game, long side quest. There we go. No, I mean, I think that we took that to heart, right? At the beginning of the year, we're like, well, we need to bring more side quests. We got to get that with those numbers matched up. So there we are. I mean, honestly, I feel like even when it is a side quest, it's still like a recommended game. There's just like a little bit of like hey, these are the caveats. If that sounds good to you, check it out. So there we are.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
Yeah, we self-select. We don't bring something we don't think you should check out in some capacity. So
Right. And honestly, for me personally, I am maybe checking a couple reviews to see if the game is probably questlog worthy, because would I really want to play a game that I spent multiple hours on to just not bring to the quest log, right? But when I'm going into a game, I don't know where it's going to fall in the quest log, and so many games have surprised me. I mean, honestly, based on Steve's recommendations and when he talked about Guacamelee, I thought it would be a side quest for me too, but it just hit me different. So,
yep, they're all bangers. All right, it's bangers only on IndieQuest.
Yeah, you never know. You might play Blanc like tonight. You might sit down and play it, just absolutely fall in love with it, and you didn't have any of the gameplay problems I had, and you just had a great time. You never know, and it might be like one of your favorite games of all time. You know, it's everybody's opinion's a little different, so that's nice. All right, so I think we're wrapping up. I guess it's time for the plugs. I think the first thing we should plug today is something that Briz made for the Polymedia Network, our Reddit. We have not actually talked about the Reddit on the podcast. So if you guys ever listen to a podcast and you're like, where's the comment section for a podcast that doesn't exist? Go over to the Reddit, r/Polymedia Network, and our episodes will be posted up there, and you can leave comments and have discussions over there on the Reddit.
Just to confirm, it's just r/Polymedia.
Oh, r/Polymedia. I
don't even need to hit that network in there. It's even quicker to type into your address bar.
There we go. And it'll also be in the description. I'm going to update our body description to have that in there, and it'll be on every episode going forward. So, yeah.
Yeah. There'll be a thread for this episode. And feel free to, in there or on a separate thread, let us know if you have any short game recommendations. That'd be good to know. It's kind of the spirit of this episode, and I'm honestly always like thirsty for a tight 2-hour experience. So please let me know if you have any that you would like to see more people talk about. Maybe we'll end up featuring it on a future IndieQuest.
Awesome. Speaking of the Polymedia Network, how about you guys shout out a podcast from the network that tickles your fancy, that makes you feel good? Seth, what you got?
I'll shout out Drunk Friend, because I don't think that we have done any podcast shout outs, and I was actually on Drunk Friend recently. So if anybody wants to go listen to Drunk Friend, you can hear me talk again. And also our good buddy Dylan was actually just on their last episode last Friday. So definitely check out Drunk Friend. Listen to Alex and Trav talk about mostly 90s stuff, lots of sports, lots of video games, lots of cool guests. Steve, what about you?
Yeah, I think much to Trav's chagrin, I'm going to shout out Off Kilter. All right, for a long time it was on hiatus. It's definitely back in a limited capacity now. I would say if there was any such thing as like Polymedia After Dark, Off Kilter is the closest thing to that. It's the most casual, the most chill, the most random kind of just goof off show. They've been coming back lately, and I don't know if this is intentional or not, but they've basically been doing like seasonal holiday episodes tied around various holidays. They had a Christmas one and then just recently a Valentine's Day one. So if you like other shows on the network, some of the other folks on the network. You may not know that Off Kilter exists, or if you're a long-time listener, you might not know that it's back. So go give Off Kilter a listen, and enjoy the laughs.
Yeah, and I'll shout out Tales of the Lesser Medium. It is a show where Caleb and Trav sit down and make a dumb video game story somehow even more dumb, but funny. So check that out if you're interested. And you can find the podcast at IndieQuest Pod on Twitter, or send us wonderful emails, IndieQuestPod@gmail.com. Also leave it on Reddit. If we get enough comments on Reddit, I'm going to keep saying Reddit a million times so it just gets in people's heads. We will read Reddit comments if they are good. You know, leave us some really banger comments. We'll bring them up on the show and we'll have some conversations about them. So, Steve, where can people find you on the interwebs?
Find me on Twitch and Twitter as Blinkoom. That's Blink OOM. M like media. How about you, Seth?
You can find me at Captain Drachma on Twitter, and of course in the Polymedia Discord, best place on the internet, and maybe hanging out on Reddit now. Josh, where can they find you? Or did we already say that?
I don't know. I feel like I'm always last. So at Frantic Society, follow me if you want to hear my bad takes about candy. All right. Thank you guys for listening to this wonderful episode of IndieQuest, where we brought short and sweet games. Seth, give us a short and sweet outro.
Leave us some comments on Reddit so I can talk to the people who listen to us, please. And I want to hear about your short games like Steve said. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.